It is Thursday here on the Locked On Network, and you know what that means. It's time for Crossover Thursday, and we have ourselves an interconference matchup here between the 4-1 Minnesota Vikings and the 3-2 Miami Dolphins. I'm Kyle Krabs of Locked On Dolphins, joined by Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings. Crossover Thursday is presented by our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is so much fun, and it is easy to play. No competing against other players, just you versus the projections from the house. Pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 extra money on your entry. It can take less than 60 seconds to put your entries in. It is that easy. We love Prize Picks, and we know you will too. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. Luke, we don't get to do this too often. NFC North and AFC East. How's it going, man?
Going well. Last time I talked to Locked On Dolphins, it was my very first crossover on the network, 2018 with Travis Wingfield.
Oh.
I didn't know anything. I had literally just started. It was like my third day. So I have fond memories of chatting with Locked On Dolphins, all you Dolphins fans.
Well, my challenge is to provide you with a better experience than Travis did. I'm still very good friends with Travis, and my objective is a smoother crossover experience than Travis gave. So
I'm going on his
let
show
me know what I got to do.
So
yeah, Travis is great. But let's talk about these Vikings first and foremost. The 4-1 start coming down to South Florida. Luke, what's the prominent theme of the start of the season for Minnesota that you think about and how that can correlate to Sunday's game?
I think so. Every postcast, you guys do the postcasts too after.
Yeah.
So every Locked On Vikings postcast, I go on with Sam Ekstrom, and my first question to him every single week is, all right, what's the headline? And I think the last 3 weeks, his headline has been, are they frauds? Are they for real? It's the most fraudulent 4-1 ever, except it's like the third most fraudulent 4-1 of like the 4-1 teams in the NFL. They went on a double doink in London against the Saints. They're barely beating the Bears. They got a little lucky against the Lions. So they are 4-1 and they've earned it. You've earned it when you wins count, right? But there's a lot of problems. Defense is having a bunch of problems. The offense is inconsistent. So we can get into more details, but that's the deal. But I guess I want to ask you, are you guys okay because Skylar Thompson is starting? That's the headline for me.
Yeah, it's Skylar kind of got thrown into the fire against the Jets with Teddy Bridgewater getting flagged for ataxia and gross motor instability on the first play of the game against the Jets. And it's been a tough stretch for Miami because obviously the first 3 games that you play, you win, and you win in not highly sustainable fashion. The Bills possessed the ball for 40 minutes against you, and
tough teams,
and the Ravens. Though. Yeah, and that was the really exciting part, was the fact that, hey, you beat 2 teams that are like legit conference contenders.
Yeah, you're not going to blow out the Bills.
And then you finish the Cincinnati game in the second half with a different quarterback than you started the game with, and you lose that game. But you were in position with 3 minutes left to potentially take the lead in the red zone before Teddy Bridgewater threw a pick. And then you finish the Jets game with a different quarterback than you started the game with, and it's a 7th-round rookie. And even in that one, you missed a field goal with about 14 minutes left in the fourth quarter that would have given you the lead, and then you tried to press and get aggressive because the Jets scored after that. And you had a strip sack that turned into a turnover and a quick touchdown. Yeah, and it spiraled on you. So, the Dolphins were in position in both of their losses to take the lead in the fourth quarter with a different quarterback than they started the game with. So, this is a really rough patch for Dolphins fans in general. And I'm just sitting here hoping Mike McDaniel puts together a game plan and he picks the concepts that he likes, and the quarterback that plays the 60 minutes is the guy that he crafted those for. Because you can tell, they've kind of just thrown the game plan in the trash. So it's like, okay, well, we don't really have a lot of confidence for Teddy to do the things that Tua did, and we don't have confidence for Skylar to do the things we had for Teddy. So
yeah, they're different.
It's really put them in a bind where I think if you looked at law of averages, you're not going to win too many games where you're losing by 21 points in the fourth quarter like you did against Baltimore. So the ball's kind of bounced both ways on him. And for Skylar, I think you're going to look to see this team. We're expecting to get Austin Jackson back at right tackle. He's been the starter. He played 15 snaps versus New England week 1 and then went on IR. You get him back at right tackle, and he's not overly good in pass protection, but he's much better in the run game than Greg Little is. I think they're going to lean on what they were able to do running the ball against the Jets, and they're going to play it a little close to the vest. You'll probably get some perimeter screen type stuff with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, but I think they're going to look to try to run the ball and take some of the pressure off of Skylar Thompson.
And that's what's interesting. So the Vikings defense has been very okay if you want to run the ball. They are giving you light boxes all day. They refuse. I mean, like 2 snaps a game will they put a safety in the box. And that safety's Harrison Smith, by the way. So I've kind of been not liking it. But he's been up on the roof all day. So they will come out too high, light box. If you want to run, you may. And they're just like okay with it, which I think is going to be really interesting. Like, they are going to you're going to like start your Raheem Mosterts, and like this is a week to start your Dolphin, like pick him in prize picks, right? But will that be enough to make up for the Vikings essentially selling out so you can't huck up a deep bomb to Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle? They're going to have a safety over the top of that, and they're going to essentially deny that at any cost. Will that be worth it? I feel like is the central question on defense here. I feel a lot better about that question when it's Skylar Thompson. If it was Tua, when I was looking at this game a couple weeks ago, and I'm going, man, Tua to Tyreek Hill, is putting a safety over the top going to be enough? Or we got Patrick Peterson playing corner. He's old. He's not as fast as he used to be. And this is a matchup to really be worried about, unless, assuming Tyreek Hill has all of his normal speed. But if they put a safety over the top, you got Skylar Thompson. Will it matter? Can he hit it?
And he showed some nice flashes in the preseason, but I think the process wasn't good. Like you could tell that he was a 7th round rookie. And, he still finds a way to make big plays, and he's fun running around in the pocket, and he's fairly athletic. I actually think out of the 3 quarterbacks, he's the one who can extend plays the best as far as being like a functional athlete. So if you want to, or if you have to get off your spot and then coverage breaks down, that might be the recipe for a big throw down the field, but I don't think that they're necessarily going to call him with a lot of appetite. Now, I think what they will do to help encourage Minnesota to stay in those deeper sets is they probably will come out and they will put Tyreek on one side and Jalen Waddle on the other side, as compared to stacking them on the same side.
You don't even need to encourage it. That's just how they live. No matter what you do, unless you're condensing everything and you're going 13 personnel, like they'll stay 2 safeties on the roof all day.
So it sounds like they're both of these teams are probably going to get the looks that they want to give. It's just how's the execution going to break down when the Dolphins have the ball and Minnesota's out there on defense.
And that it makes this game really, really interesting and hard to predict because, and maybe we'll flip around and talk about it on the other side of the ball a little later. I think the Dolphins are going to give the Vikings stuff that they haven't quite seen yet this season, and I don't know how they plan to respond to that. They've seen a lot of too high and more conservative stuff, but they haven't really seen it sounds to me, and I correct me if I'm wrong here, that the Dolphins like to flatten out a little more on the front and approach like zone teams that way. But I haven't seen that thrown at the Vikings yet. So I don't know how they're going to respond. And I have no idea if their response works or not.
Kind of flood the gaps, right? Where you kind of get everybody walked up in gaps. We're going to play gap control. And then it's up to all those defenders along the front to make sure that you're maintaining your individual integrity and kind of build the wall at the point of attack and try to box runs in that way. And they've have had success with that. And I do think Miami's run defense has been one of the brighter spots. New England got after him a little bit with some backside zone, inside zone in week 1. And then Miami adjusted at halftime, and they had a lot more success in kind of bolting that down. But it's been really hard to kind of gauge Miami too, because they gave up a 70-something yard touchdown run to Lamar Jackson that really juiced Baltimore's rushing totals. But other than that, they defended the traditional runs fairly well. And against Buffalo, they defended the traditional runs against Devin Singletary and Zach Moss and James Cook very well. It was the Josh Allen extended plays that he led the team in rushing in that contest. And they were successful against Joe Mixon. There were some one-on-one opportunities outside as that game wore on that Xavier Howard goes down about the beginning of the fourth quarter, and then you really saw the Dolphins kind of tap out where they didn't have the horses in the secondary to run with Higgins and Chase anymore, and it forced them to loosen up. So I think there's some really interesting parallels with trying to run the ball traditionally if you're a zone-based offense with what we've seen from Miami, that ironically you would look at the Dolphins scoring defense and say, yeah, that probably is not a great matchup, Miami's defense versus Minnesota's offense. But I think some of the things that Minnesota does well, Miami has shown some success in defending, which makes some of the matchups on the perimeter, I think, really interesting in this matchup.
Yes, and we'll get into those matchups because I want to talk to you about the state of that secondary right now. I know you're a little banged up there too, so I got some questions. But first, look, we're all trying to make our defenses as strong as possible, and you should do so too.
Yes.
Like with your home security at Simply Safe, your safety is the only thing that matters. It's cutting edge technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back, so you always know that your home is safe. It blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door. HD security cameras inside and outside your home, and smarter ways to detect motion, so you aren't going to have a big alarm go off if a raccoon goes by. It will confirm when a break-in is real and a threat, and then dispatch the proper authorities. So customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at Simply Safe, SimplySafe.com/LockedOnNFL. That's simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. Save 20% on your Simply Safe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more. There is no safe like Simply Safe.
I love a good segue, and that was brilliant. That was brilliantly done.
Nailed it. You got to listen to Locked On NFL on Tuesdays. Ross and I are competing for who can reach the hardest on segues.
Guys, hit subscribe. Locked On NFL Tuesdays, and let's hear this battle unfold in real time. That's excellent. So
Ross Jackson talk about Locked On Saints.
Locked On, or let's get locked on this Dolphins secondary with some of the questions that exist there. Obviously, the big player on Minnesota side of things is Justin Jefferson, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And it sounds Xavier Howard came out on Wednesday and said that he was feeling much better and will play on Sunday. So that really hurt Miami against the Jets. And this is already a team that is engineered to play a lot of press man coverage on the outside. They like to play man-to-man coverage in their presser situations and in their third and longs and put Xavier Howard and Byron Jones out on islands. Well, we haven't seen Byron Jones all year. He's on PUP, had Achilles surgery this offseason. They were hopeful he'd be ready for the start of the year. He's eligible to come off PUP, and he's not even practicing yet. So for the Dolphins, that layer has really complicated things. And then Xavier Howard went down in the fourth quarter against the Bengals, did not play against the Jets. And it really showed because Miami is no longer a team that's able to play in your face on the outside and bring these pressure looks. Dolphins fans are asking, where's pass rusher Jalen Phillips? Where's safety Javon Holland and Brandon Jones and their ability to play all these looks in the box and bring exotic looks? You can tell they're playing a lot softer. They're playing soft zone. So when they bring their blitzes, you're playing soft zone. There's free access for a conversion of a route that's going to allow the quarterback to get the ball out of his hands before the blitz gets home to the quarterback. So it's kind of been the theory in building the defense is from the back forward. They're coverage over pass rush type group, and they have some good pass rushers, but they've had to change how they play in the secondary, and especially without Xavier Howard, it's really hurt them in their ability to get home and pressure the quarterback.
Got you. So there's two ways to, I think, take Justin Jefferson out of the game, and we've seen a couple teams succeed at it. We've seen teams fail at it, but one way is the way the Lions did it. Held him to like 14 yards. And they just sold out. They had a safety over the top of him. They had a safety on the other side, poaching any crossing routes because the Vikings love to use deep crossers and deep overs and stuff to get Justin Jefferson with favorable one-on-ones or favorable looks, or just give him a lot of room to run away from a guy. The Lions had success there, but it left everybody else on their whole team one-on-one, and their other guys couldn't hang with Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne. So that's the deal. If you want to sell out, you can stop Justin Jefferson, but everybody else has to win one-on-one. Can you do that? Or blitz the heck out of Kirk Cousins? He's actually struggled a whole bunch against blitzes and his blitz counters. I think it's got better over the last couple of weeks. I was a lot angrier about it, 2 weeks ago.
Right.
But blitz Kirk Cousins and just hope you can screw up the play that way. And maybe Justin Jefferson's open all day and it doesn't matter. But what we haven't seen yet, a little bit with the Eagles, and Darius Slay going one-on-one on Justin Jefferson and at least holding his own, if not outright winning the matchup. Outside of literally that, they haven't really seen guys do it. They had Marshawn Lattimore on him in London against the Saints. Lattimore couldn't do it with no safety help, nothing over the top, and Darius Slay had some help. So that's, I think, defensively the question you have to ask yourself. Are we selling out to stop Justin Jefferson? If not, he's getting 100 yards on us and we got to win anyways. And if so, can everybody else hang on the outside? Because it's also, you can't do the Belichick thing and have CB2 be the guy playing underneath Justin Jefferson, because he'll just win underneath routes all day on that. It's got to be your good one. It was Jeff Okudah with the Lions. It was Slay with the Eagles, Lattimore with the Saints. So you have to have your second corner or your slot corner keeping up with Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne. And I haven't seen anybody really strike that balance well outside of specifically Philadelphia.
Yeah. I would not be surprised if they don't try that route first, though. They did that with Jamar Chase and Cincinnati, where they put Xavier Howard on T. Higgins and played him on the island. And aside of one misplayed ball, that was a go route, outside release go route down the field, that Xavier Howard looked like he picked the beat on the ball, and he slowed down, where if he would have kept running, would have hit him in the face. Now, they scored a 60-yard touchdown. So you tip your cap to T. Higgins and you say, hey, Xavier, you got to read that ball a little better and not give up a 60-yard play. But then they played Javon Holland rolled over top and had Nick Needham, who's traditionally their slot, who right now is playing outside in place of Byron Jones, on Jamar Chase. And then Jamar Chase only really got cooking when Howard went down and they had to convert to true zone type stuff. And then they tried to bring pressure when they were losing. They were down by 5, and Cincinnati had the ball in the last 5 minutes, and Chase got a big play down the field because they tried to bring the pressure on man. So I would not be surprised if they are not willing to, and they showed this against Buffalo too, where they said, take the short stuff. We're going to try and rally up. We're going to try and make you string together 10-play drives with consistency and try to live that way. And if it burns them, then I would not be surprised at all if they end up flipping Xavier around and they try the same approach and then put Needham on Adam Thielen. I wanted to ask you, Luke, what is Adam Thielen's athletic profile looking like these days? Because he's been such a great route runner for so long. But the big question I have with Needham is athletically, he's a guy who's more suited to play inside, where he's got a little bit of leverage over top of him. There's not a lot of high-level wide receivers that I think he can run with. What's Thielen look like from an athleticism perspective at this stage?
Well, yeah, to that last thing, they do like to condense the formation a lot. So even if he is playing nominal outside corner, you still will have you're not playing out by the sideline often. I mean, not always, right? But less often you'll be playing by the sideline. I have been saying this about Thielen since training camp. It is going to mean a way different thing to you as a Dolphins fan. But I have been saying late career Chris Carter. Possession guy, convert every third down, great.
That hits different for me.
Yeah, little different for you guys. So, but not that late career Chris Carter. But that's the idea. He is not the athlete he was in 2018 when he was stringing together 100-yard games all the time. But he's not that far off. He can still absolutely get separation unless you're a real good corner. If you're just throwing your random slot corners at him, that's not enough. And also don't sleep on KJ Osborne, who sort of broke out last year as a borderline wide receiver 2/wide receiver 3 type. And so, I mean, he's hardest worker. I believe he spent 1 year in Miami at University of Miami. Yes. Buffalo guy before that, though.
Yeah.
And he's been a lot of times he's a slot. A lot of times he's a complementary piece, but he's also very clutch in 2-minute situations. Caught a game winner against Detroit. So he's very cold in the big moment, that kind of guy. So we kind of got two of those, like real, third down, beat a one-on-one, get open over the middle kind of guys. And then you have Justin Jefferson, who's just, unless you're black holing him, he's a total game wrecker. Um, that has been, I think, the key to the Vikings offense is being able to find a way to take that trio and at the very least limit it. Yeah, on your side, I would do that. But I am very curious to see what if the Dolphins are willing to just say, okay, Xavier Howard, you're on Justin Jefferson. And if the Vikings are willing to do that. So that's what they did against Green Bay week 1. They blew out Green Bay saying, yeah, we're not going to let Justin Jefferson go up against Jair Alexander. How about Eric Stokes instead? We're going to motion him across the formation. And, you're going to go up against Eric Stokes all day or linebackers and doing a lot of schematic stuff that way. Yeah.
Luke, wanted to also ask you real quick before we get into some game predictions here about Dalvin Cook and his performance this season. I know he took to Twitter on Wednesday and was asking for anybody who had his statistics playing against teams in Florida.
He's
in the
so
state
excited.
Of Florida. So
he's going to have about 100 people in the stands. He is so hyped to go play. Yeah. He's like Miami dog guy, born and raised, right? But yeah, his season has been up and down. He's got a shoulder thing right now. He's playing in a harness and he's playing on something of a pitch count. They're taking him off for third downs. But he's still got all that shift and wiggle that he always had. But it's been a little bit more Alexander Madison than we usually see just because of his health. So we'll see there. And so he's also struggled to get over 100 yards, but he's been very good. He was incredible in this last week's game against Chicago. He's still very much the smart runner he always has been. Just you're not going to see him every single play, but Madison's been playing really well. So that running back trio has been very good, and that running game has been very good. But like we kind of alluded to before, I think the Dolphins, based on what I've asked other people about, based on those answers, it sounds like they're going to be a little different than what we've seen other teams do against them so far. And so I'm curious to see just how the Vikings respond to that. But if you would like to take a look at certain skill players, sounds like we're going to have maybe a lot of underneath stuff available to Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen. Maybe you think that Tyreek Hill can burn Patrick Peterson. Those kinds of takes are perfect for Prize Picks. PrizePicks.com or the Prize Picks apps. It's daily fantasy made easy. You're not building a whole team and going up in a big pool against a whole bunch of people. It's just you versus the house. Pick 2 to 5 players in their projections. It's that simple. And whether you think that they'll beat their house projection or not. If you go to prizepicks.com, you can get a 100% deposit match up to $100 if you enter promo code locked on. That means you put in $100, you get $100 slapped right on top of there. Put in 50, get 50, etc. That is prizepicks.com or promo code locked on, or download the app at Google Play or the App Store. Promo code locked on at PrizePicks.
Okay, Luke. So let's get into some game prediction. We've talked about each team having the ball, some of the key matchups to be mindful of. Miami having the home field advantage in this matchup. Obviously, there's a lot made about South Florida weather, and it's still relative first half of the season. It might be hot. Well, maybe not Buffalo Bills game hot, but nevertheless, it'll be warm down there in South Florida. But I certainly think the third string quarterback level for Miami is the kind of ultimate wild card here in this game, and probably a neutralizer for that home field advantage that Miami has coming into this game. So you look at both sides of the ball. What's your expectation for what we will see on Sunday?
So I'm struggling with this one because the Dolphins they're an AFC team. So I'm always going to be a little less familiar, and they are a lot different than the other opponents the Vikings have played. And of course we got a quarterback we've barely seen any of. That said, the Vikings kind of have a thing with backup quarterbacks. I don't know if you know this, but they were losing to Cooper Rush before it was cool. They've lost to Matt Moore in multiple occasions, spanning back like to 2009.
Dolphins legend Matt Moore.
Dolphins, that's right. Dolphins legend Matt Moore. They lost a very embarrassing game to Chase Daniel a couple years ago, and like these are like in playoff seasons. It's like a thing, and we're not sure if it was a Mike Zimmer thing or if it's gone now. There's a bit of a curse. It's a little cosmic. So we hear third string. Most teams will be like, "Oh, third string quarterback, great! This game's going to be so much easier." We hear third string quarterback, and we go, "Oh no, we're going to get clowned
It's like,
on so hard
here
when
we
we
go
lose to
again.
this guy. Yeah. We needed a double doink to get past Andy Dalton earlier in the year. So I don't know. I'm not taking anything for granted here. The bet online spread here is Vikings
3?
by 3.5.
Okay.
I think it feels to me like the Dolphins have some very specific rock, paper, scissors counters to some of the Vikings' favorite stuff. So I'm going to say that the Dolphins will cover. No idea who's going to win, but I think the Dolphins will cover. I also see the over-under at 45. I'm going to take the under. Kind of feel like the defenses are going to be able to figure this one out.
I think that's a safe bet to take the under. And also smart of you to take Dolphins covering 3.5.
Yeah, give
and
me a
not
hook point. It
necessarily
just
going to
moved,
it.
by the way. It was 3 when we started recording.
Oh, okay, so the word's getting around of the Skylar Thompson. I guess some money has come in since the Skylar Thompson announcement was made on Wednesday.
Right.
Listen, and you talk about self-preservation and protecting yourself from expectations and all. The Dolphins start 3-0. Dolphins fans everywhere saying, here we go again. This team is cursed. We've now lost 2 in a row. We're on our third string quarterback. Now, there has been significant progress this week for both Tua Tagovailoa and Teddy Bridgewater with concussion protocols. It sounds like Teddy Bridgewater, assuming everything goes well with the rest of this week, will dress and be the backup for the game. But for Coach McDaniel, again, it comes back to, if I start my game plan on Monday or Tuesday and I don't have Teddy when I start that process,
that makes sense.
I just want to keep the same quarterback that I'm starting my game planning with, because again, it's been 2 straight games where the Dolphins have had a different quarterback finish the game than start the game. So I understand the thought process. And Tua Tagovailoa actually back on the practice field on Wednesday for the first time. So it sounds like, they've been conservative. They said even if he's cleared, he's not going to play. And again, that comes back in part to football activities, being protective of your perceived franchise quarterback, all that stuff. I kind of expect that the Dolphins are going to take the long-term view here, and they're going to say, look, if you go back to 3-3 and we have an 11-game season to play, and the team, say what you will about Tua Tagovailoa, they win a lot with him as the starting quarterback of the team. I think they're okay with that. I genuinely think that, you look at the schedule that comes up behind this, and you've got Pittsburgh, and then you've got Detroit and Chicago, and then it's the Browns with Jacoby Brissett, and then you have your bye, and then it's the Houston Texans. It's a very favorable next 5-game stretch. So I think that also feeds
fall to
into
500, come back. Yeah.
Right. I think that feeds into the decision to play the long game here, and let's just do what the coach wants to do for the sake of the game plan. But for me to protect myself and my mental well-being, I'm coming into this game with no expectations.
Okay.
I'll take the team with the starting quarterback to win the game. So I'll pick Minnesota to win this football game. I will.
I'll go with you there. I'll say Vikings win, but the Dolphins Tua is like famously good against the spread, and your backup's Teddy Spreadwater. So I'm never going to pick against the Dolphins with the spread.
Teddy's like outrageously good against the spread. I had no idea until
multiple
like 2 weeks
spots
ago.
Too. All the way back to here in Minnesota. I was like I love Teddy Bridgewater so much. I hope you guys are taking good care of him over there. He's like one of my favorite players of all time. Because when I first got into like covering the Vikings, he was the quarterback. So he holds this very special place in my heart. But so I kind of like, a part of me was really hoping we would see him because I just like watching him. I just like him. But I'll say the Vikings win. What would it be? What would a 2-point win be on a 42, like 22-20? There it is. 22-20 Vikings. Yeah. It's the under. 23. That's the Vikings covering, or the Dolphins covering, but the Vikings winning. 23-20. Call it that. Yeah.
And I will go with 22-16. Vikings win. So it'll be close.
There it is. Gonna see some messy stuff go on here, but I will say the Vikings defense has been a catastrophe. They've messed up their zones a lot. Their pass rush isn't getting home a lot. If ever there were a moment for Skylar Thompson to get into a rhythm and figure it out, if you wanted to do some conservative play calls right off the bat, do some rhythm things, some sprint outs or whatever your get him in rhythm play is, call a couple of those right off the bat, you can get away with it. And this is definitely not a world where you're going to see Skylar Thompson fall apart, throw 4 picks and get 6 points. The Vikings are not the defense that earns that. So there's a world. I'll tell you that.
Well, it's going to be an entertaining game regardless. And Luke, we don't get to do these too often. As we said, it's been 4 years since the last time we had the
Yeah.
Locked On Dolphins, Locked On Vikings crossover. But hope everybody enjoyed, this crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Network. Your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Make sure you hit subscribe to Locked On Vikings for all of your Vikings updates throughout the season and the offseason. Locked On Dolphins. And make sure you check out Locked On NFL and all of the other great podcasts that we have here in the Locked On Network as well. Luke Braun, Kyle Krabs signing off. Thanks for checking out the crossover Thursday and enjoy the game on Sunday.